Hello, everyone. This is W4ARW with Amateur Radio World. I have not been doing so great with videos lately. Those yellow words you see across the top of my page, I haven't been sticking with them. I've had something that's come up and I've been working on Sundays for the past few weeks. That's going to go away soon, and we will be back to the normal schedule. So stick with me, and I should be able to put new videos out for you every Sunday very soon. But I figured I'm behind. I try and put these out the first week of the month. I've been busy, but I'm going to get it out because one of my goals this year is to make all 12 QST reviews. So if I can get this one online, we'll be a quarter of the way done with that goal, which will be great. Time flies. Or goes fast anyway. I don't know about it having wings or anything. Okay, so this is one of my favorite issues of the month or the year, the annual antenna issue. So we're going to look at some antennas, and there's a couple other startling pieces of information you'll find out in this month's QST. So hang on, here we go. So let's start off with the cover. The cover is pretty cool, but let me get you the information on it. First, let's go through a few ads. Gotta love them. Okay, the cover is 17-year-old Javier Lopez, EA6ALW, standing near the base of his station's antenna system. Flashback. Continuing on. So there's not actually a second century article in here. I try and read those, or at least recap them every month. There's not one in here this month, and I'll show you why shortly. So we're going to just start at Member Spotlight, which I happen to know this fellow, not well, but I've spoke with him before. K8LMJ. That's Mike Dell. And he is a lead factor, I guess I could say, in producing podcasts. So in 2005, Mike created his first amateur radio podcast titled the Ham Radio Podcast with his co-host John Martin, KF6KK. So this podcast functioned as an audio classroom for listeners studying for their general technician and general class exams. Mike is still very much involved in podcast creation today. When he isn't assisting citizens at Blubry, I don't even know how you pronounce this, it's Blubry, but that's where he works. He's a podcast designer and host. So he's also the vice president and webmaster for the International Order of Crazies, IOOK, another loosely formed group of amateurs, and their website, www.iOOK.org, I'll have a link to in the description. So here's a highlighted quote. I'll read that to you. Mike's amateur radio interests are diverse, everything from HF Digital, D-Star, Fusion, and HF Nets to much more. He is a volunteer examiner for both ARRL and W5YI, and counts himself among the ranks of dedicated ARRL official observers. Fun job. I'd like to be one someday. Believe you have to be 18 to do it. So, up front is the next thing we'll stop and visit, if I can get to it. Okay, so this month in QST, it seems like everybody I know is in here. Next, we've got another person who I have actually talked to several times, Brian Smithson, N8WRL in Clover, South Carolina. He's not too far from me. He got up early to take a snapshot of his antenna farms at sunrise. And Larry Johnson, WB4KLI, preferred to wait till the sun went down and got this thermal image, or night vision image, of his antenna. I like this one better personally. But wow, N8WRL has, I think, the 3 towers up with a lot of beams, so he has probably the largest antenna farm in my area that I'm aware of. And then also Brian Wingert, RVD in Washington built this 500 watt HF amplifier using a Communications Concepts EB104 component set. Jumping on. Yes, there are a lot of ads in the middle of the magazine right there. A delta loop for 160 meters. Here's our first place winner for the, I believe it's 10 meters and below, or 10, yeah, maybe it's, I believe 10 meters and below category for the ARRL antenna contest, which I believe I made a review about. Maybe I skipped that issue though. But here's the results. The first place winner for this category was a delta loop for 160. Now here's the trick about this delta loop. The feed stub, as he calls it, this coil of 88 foot, 8 inch long RG11 75 ohm coax with this, okay, this might be kind of hard to see. This triangle is the delta loop, and there's a jumper up here at the top that either makes it a regular delta loop, or if you take the jumper off, it defaults through the 450 ohm ladder line and completes the circuit. So this allows for a decreased SWR for one, and two, it allows for a different radiation pattern entirely. You can see down here these two radiation patterns of the jumper in and off changes drastically. SWR plot is over here. It goes from about 1.5 at the bottom to 1.5 at the top with a dip in the middle. So pretty good SWR. And the azimuth pattern you can see here. Let's see. Its peak gain elevation angle has 23 degrees, which is not quite omnidirectional. He also shows how to make this for 80 meters, which all the dimensions are here. If you're interested in making this antenna, then just comment more info please on whatever project you see in here, and I'll make a short video going into higher detail of just that issue. So I'd totally enjoy making those videos for you guys. If I don't cover enough information and you want more, comment, more info on this issue or this article, and I'll make sure to go in depth for you. So here's a very large antenna for 75 meters. First place winner in 80 through 10 meters category. This winner was 160 and below. So this antenna is pretty cool. How it works is this tower is acting as a radiator, or the driven element, and you can see these guy ropes supporting these two wires here, which act sort of like a beam stood up on end, and it radiates this way. Take this line, which is the dimension line for your spacing, but pretend like that's your radiation center. So it radiates like such. Here's a directivity pattern of how it radiates. Here's an elevation plane. Looks like on the back side it's about 40 degrees, and on the front side it's about 30 degrees. Let's see what they said. No. 15.1 takeoff angle with a 5.7 dB at that angle. So I was wrong. Here's your azimuth plane. I'm trying to get the information for you. This is at 3790 kilohertz. The Yagi has a front to back ratio of 20.65 dB. So this antenna is a RON 25 tower that's 140 feet tall with these two 90-foot, what does he call them? I'm just going to say sub-elements. But they have jumpers on here, so you can unclip them to turn it off and use just the tower as a vertical antenna to get that omnidirectional gain. So this antenna is pretty cool. This is the winner for the 2-meter category. This antenna is a low-profile 2-meter mobile antenna, which you can see. And here's a photo of it mounted on top of a vehicle. It's a horizontally polarized antenna, and You can even use a very fine hardware cloth or wire mesh to make this antenna, because the RF isn't going to see the holes in it. So this was originally designed for VHF television broadcasting. You can see the omnidirectional pattern, or the mostly omnidirectional pattern it has. The red circle, which you can probably see best, is the slot antenna, and a quarter wave spike or vertical mounted on the vehicle roof is the blue. So you can't really see the difference up here. The what is he calling this? The slot antenna just has a slightly higher elevation angle than the vertical does, and here they're pretty much identical. The slot antenna is slightly more uniform than the vertical, so it compares quite nicely. The SWR, and I suppose you could tune this, but at 144 it's 2 to 1, at 145 it's perfectly resonant, and at 148 it's like 2.5 to 1. So you would have to, but it's so easy to tune this antenna that you can fine tune it for just the portion of the band you want to use at any time with no hassle or anything like that. So I want to show you how to do that, which is a very interesting design. How this works is there are two plates of metal, and these two spacers are fiberglass, these two are metal. You drill these little slots like you can see here. That dark spot is a slot, and this piece of metal comes down to the feed point, which the center conductor is contacted or screwed onto here. I'm sorry, that the outer shield, and the center conductor is that little soldered piece of wire that touches this, which is adjustable because of the slot cut here. So as you move that in and out, it adjusts your SWR, and you build this same thing on the other side but without the SO239, and as you adjust that, it adjusts your resonant frequency. So you get this for best tune, and then you go on the other side and adjust it for what frequency you want that tune at. And as long as you keep the square dimensions right, you can cut cool shapes like this boomerang or this Batman logo. Pretty novelty in my opinion. So here's the materials list here. Again, if you're interested in building this antenna, ask me for more info. I will email you a close-up picture of this page or something like that, or just make a separate video on more detail, the dimensions and everything, so that you can kind of get the idea of what you want to do. So you could actually reach the designer of this antenna at jportune@aol.com if you want to email him. So you can do that as well. The Cat Whiskers Broadband Multi-Loop Antenna. This is a pretty cool antenna. I like this one. So this is the second place winner in 80 through 10 meters. It is, I believe, 5 bands. So let me get the light glare out of the way. Wow, this is cheap. Okay. Let's just do this. Now you can see, maybe, let me just zoom in. I shouldn't even be doing what I was just doing. Okay, that's way better. Let's go with that. Okay, so you can see the red rectangle along the perimeter here. That is made of wire. Now what you have happening here is making contact along that red rectangle. You have these, the feed point is down here, and you have these elements coming out. You get 2 for this band, 2 for this band, 2 exactly horizontal for this band, and 2 with a slightly downward angle for this band. He tells you in this article what angles you need to have, and each set of elements works a different band, and then I believe the perimeter works a different band. So you get 5 bands in here with this design, and you can see the top. That's what it looks like in reality. The antenna, sorry I zoomed out too far, now you can see my radio. I believe the total length is right about 23 feet or so. the long side of the rectangle. So you can see up here, this is what the bracket looks like. You have 4 spreaders just to kind of keep the rectangle shape, and then a boom mount or a mast mount and a feed point. So this is a directional antenna, which we're about to see. Wow. So he gives you the frequency. This is 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. So you can see the radiation pattern is very similar to that of a dipole, but not quite the same. It's slightly more omnidirectional. Okay, you can see on the red it has this V or dip in the center, and the blue is more of a perfect oval. So it's more omnidirectional than a dipole, but pretty close to the same. And not only that, but it is also having a slightly smaller, or at least on most of the bands, smaller angle here, where 10 meters is the only one where it has a larger angle. So there's some information, list of materials here. And SWR, I think it says, okay, it never goes over 1.85 when you're inside of the bands. So not a bad antenna. He includes with what kind of stations he's worked in the past. Let's see, he's been using this for 6 months and provides at least one S unit, stronger signals than his other antennas, and slightly better signal to noise ratio. Several DX contacts he's made with this antenna, but when he switched to the vertical, he can't even hear those stations. So it seems to have a pretty good gain, a little bit more than a dipole, which is good. Again, if you want more details, email me, comment me, whatever you want to do. So product reviews, I tend to try and skip over, which you should all know by now, and I'm going to do that now. So I was really hoping to try and make a shorter QST this month, but I'm looking at my time and wow. So I will try and go a little bit faster, but I don't want to skip the doctors in. So I think I just did that. Okay. Height above ground is a major driver of a horizontal antenna's elevation pattern. What? Okay, I'll explain that. So, here's the question. If I replace a horizontal dipole antenna at half wave above typical ground and replace it with a horizontal Yagi antenna at the same height, will the peak takeoff angle still be around 30 degrees? Or will the parasitic elements alter that angle? And the answer, in brief, is those elements are going to make a difference. As you increase your height, your angle is going to improve drastically. So I'm trying to find exactly where he gives an exact answer, but I believe, let's see, a horizontal dipole at a height of a half wave does indeed have a peak elevation of 30 degrees. The primary impact of adding a reflector and director to make a 3-element Yagi is to redirect the rear wave from the dipole and focus the pattern toward the front. A beam antenna. The EC/NEC predictions of the two antennas patterns at 30 degrees elevation are compared below. So, looks like to achieve the same wave radiation pattern, you need to be one wavelength above the ground. So you should be doubling the height of your dipole for the same peak takeoff angle. Also, question. I operate HF mobile and I'm getting tired of burning gas. With the engine idling, how long can I expect to be able to operate 100 watts without running the car engine? His answer, you don't do that. That's not what you do. Car batteries are designed for giving a lot of juice in a short amount of time and then recharging, not a continuous steady drain like lithium-ion batteries. So he suggests buying I believe he called it a deep discharge battery, something that will allow you to slowly pull off and just install that in your vehicle and then recharge it while you're driving. So you're not supposed to use your car battery for HF mobile because of the current pull. Hints and hacks, a neat little carrying case for portable power supply, which will operate your HT for several hours. He's got 2 Anderson power pulls and some, what are these, D batteries mounted in a pencil case that will snap shut and provide a portable carrying case if your HT battery dies. So I'm not going to go into technical correspondence, but I will hit hanging a treetop antenna with a drone. Now, they did one article, very small, with this before, and I thought of this idea last year when I was getting ready to have my antenna party. We attempted to do it, but my friend's drone was not powerful enough, and I didn't have one at that time. So they used DJI drones, which is my favorite brand so far. I've seen a few in action, and they work incredibly well. But they used one drone to film the event and one drone to carry, which you can see here. So what happened was, you can see up here, I happen to have one of these, just a coincidence. So let me get mine out of my parts store and show you kind of what they were doing. So they had this little electronic lever, and they had it mounted in this position, and they used an electronic port. Say they just plug this into their drone, and then when they pushed a switch on the remote, the tennis ball with the fishing line on it, which was hanging here, this slid down into this position, which let it drop off over the limb they were trying to achieve. So that's basically what they did. And they said it worked extremely well, except they had to tie the fishing line to the tennis ball and a larger rope to hang it from, because the the fishing line was getting caught up inside the lever as it went up and down. So, good idea. ARRL International Grid Chase Update. So you only need to give your 4-character grid square. You do not have to give the 6-character. There's not a lot of stuff in here that I just need to point out, but I do want to tell you that they do encourage operating mobile. So they encourage operating mobile if you want to get on, and they suggest a few apps which allow you to see your grid square. Actually, Repeater Book is one of them. It'll show you your grid square. It's not designed for that, but it pops up as soon as you turn the app on. So you could use that as well. And then here's a personal story from Tim Carter, W3ATB, talking about how he used to, be the kind of guy that would make a contact here or there, not really do much on the radio, could do about 5-7 words per minute Morse code. And then the National Parks on the Air happened, and you can see him doing an activation here. He did several activations, boosted his code speed, and rekindled his enthusiasm for the hobby. So that's what he's got going on here. This is pretty cool. RF treatment offers hope for Alzheimer's patients. KB1EHE, Eric Knight, is the co-head behind the project. He's the head ham operator behind the project. So the idea is to use, let me figure out exactly where it is, I don't want to misquote anything. The therapy bathes the entire brain with RF in UHF spectrum set aside for industrial, scientific, and medical applications, some 100 megahertz higher than a cell phone. So about 100 megahertz above a cell phone, and they bathe the brain in RF. And the idea, I'm trying to find where the theory is. I should just have it memorized, but I can't see it here. Basically, the RF breaks up and disintegrates the the fat or the mineral, whatever it is that is adhering to the brain cells and causing the damage. The idea is that it disintegrates those with the radiation. So, unfortunately, I can't see exactly where it is, but that's the idea. So happenings, NY2RF That's the ARRL CEO, as you all should know. He is retiring from the ARRL. 69 years old, licensed in 1966 as WA3GRF. And look at that. He was in for GRF in North Carolina, my home state, for a little while. But NY2RF is going to retire, so our upfront, or I'm sorry, our second century is going to be modified. There's a few other happenings I'm not going to go into too much, but I think it's about time I should wrap up the video. I try and keep them about this length every time. I hit all the really important stuff, so tell you what, I'll just jump to the quick stats. And FYI, if I'm skipping over House DX or the world above 50 megahertz, whatever, and I'm skipping over that one article you really like, let me know, and I'll make sure to hit it for you each month. So, quick stats. Have you ever registered with the UTC to operate on 630 meters? 25% of hams say yes, 75% say no. I would fall into that latter category. If you registered to operate on 630 meters, have you been denied? Yes, only 2%. No, only 23%. And still, I fall into that 75% of people who didn't register. Have you registered with the UTC to operate on 2,220 meters? I'm sorry, just 2,200. 3% less say yes at 22%, and 78% no, which I also fall into. And if you've registered, have you been denied permission? Yes, only 1%, no, 21%, and 78% still haven't registered. So that's your quick stats. That is your review for this month. Do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what I can do to make these reviews better, and I'll be sure to do it for you guys. Alright, 73s, and we will see you next week.